What is up, clankers? Today I've got a technique that I've been messing around with for the last couple of weeks or so. Now be careful what you tell about this one. This is some real deep state sound design goodness right here. So what this is essentially making any oscillator super low and then using it as a modulator, which we can do super easily in Serum 2, so that it acts as an LFO. I mean, we could just use an LFO for this, but I think this gives you some pretty cool sounds. And if we do it through FM as well, we get some very nice stuff going on within the oscillator. So it's being basically baked into the oscillator itself. So, alright, lovely. So stick on oscillator B, drop that level, drop the octave, and we'll get some FM going from it. Pretty cool. So we can go up the keyboard and make it faster. Could experiment maybe messing around with the octave over here. And maybe we could stick a macro onto the course as well to make it even slower, give us some control over the rate. I don't know if you can hear that, but you've already got some pretty cool artifacts going on in there, so we'll stick on another compressor. And we'll make this one a multi-band just to try and accentuate that a little bit. And this macro is kind of like a frequency rate now, so if we turn it up. So at the moment it starts at a random point every time. Could bring that down and get rid of that. Now it's starting at the same place every time, but I'm going to keep it up just for now because I like having some random kind of stuff going on when I'm doing this kind of sound design. We could also change it so that it's on a fixed pitch, so if we get rid of pitch tracking it will no longer detect what keyboard key you're playing. But again, I like to have it on just for the purposes of this. I'm also going to stick this back down to 0. No right way to do this. This is just how I'm doing it for this video. Alright, so what we could do maybe is go in here and find a bit more interesting of a waveform. So let's go for Genji. Might change it to a sine wave as well. And I'm also going to stick on oscillator C and turn that level down again. And we'll stick that onto here. Maybe for this one, we'll do the opposite. We'll turn this one all the way up, so it's kind of like more of a classic FM sound. Maybe we could stick some FM on here from B.
Have I labelled all these samples by note and key? Absolutely not. Is there a nice amount of dynamic range with all of these? No, half of them are brick wall.
Get it now.
Real density sounds. On like a road to get it now.
Now I think you can start to hear why I like using this technique quite a lot. We could maybe change the wavetable position. Pretty cool. Maybe we'll stick an LFO onto there. I know, dirty word in this video, but we're going to do it. Another thing I really like to do when I'm doing this is stick a bode on there as well. Now I think we'll change this back to just a single now. So maybe we'll get... So what I'm doing here, just to clarify, right click on shift, modulator source, and you can choose pretty much anything in Serum 2 as a modulator source. I'm going to use a signal from oscillator B as the source. Maybe we'll stick this slow LFO on the range. Alright, let's have another look at the waveforms we've got going on here. Pretty cool. Let's have a look at some other wavetables, shall we? Let's go into Serum 2 wavetables, maybe. Get something like a bit more of a crazy digital wavetable. Mr. Bruce Lee, what's this one? Let's turn this off as well. We want something a bit crazier than that, so... Morpheus, maybe? And let's go on to the warp functions for oscillator B. Go on the alt warp and something like quantize, maybe? And I'm just basically vibing at this point, just messing around, seeing what I can come up with. Let's go back over onto the bode and dick around with this a little bit. Alright, let's turn this quantize down for now, and I'm going to go back to something maybe pulse width based. Maybe we'll turn up the sync. And as you can hear, we can use that to increase the rate as well. Maybe we'll put another LFO onto here so it becomes exponential. And as you can see, this shift is going a bit crazy, so why don't we go into the matrix, find the shift and turn that down so it's doing less. Could even flip it the other way if we wanted to. Let's do it for both of them. Maybe we'll turn both of these off. And now all we've got is the Bode doing the work for us. Let's get rid of that sync as well. And find... I really like this Genji wavetable for doing this. Maybe we'll get rid of that one. Let's try sticking B onto here as well. Maybe we'll do the opposite. We'll take that one off, stick an LFO onto there. Maybe we could get a different LFO and use sample and hold, something like that maybe. And I'm going to keep the smooth off so that it gives me more of a... Maybe we'll put this onto the octave as well even. Let's put a bit of oscillator B onto the shift as well. You can hear if we stick some blur on here, maybe a bit of feedback as well that gives it more of a metallic sound. Maybe we could turn both of those off on this instance and stick another instance on. You can hear that? And if we want to manipulate this waveform a bit more as well, we could go and stick some distortion or something on here. Maybe we'll stick the LFO onto that as well. Just realised this noise is still on, not really doing anything, so ignore that, we'll just turn it off. But as you can hear, this technique does give you some pretty cool sounds, which you could then resample, cut them up, make them into samples of your own, which I'm sure I'll do a video on at some point soon. As you can hear, pretty good for making risers and stuff, so I'll go into basic shapes and go onto this ramp. We'll turn the random all the way down, because at the moment, it's different every time, but we turn this down. There you go, you've got a nice sort of basis for a downlifter, or we could go on to Alt Warp and flip it and get it onto 50%. So let's stick a macro onto there, make it so it goes up to 50. And then if we stick this up, there you go, you got yourself a downlifter / a riser switch, so let's label that. Very nice, so now we've got the basis for our riser and downlifter. We'll use we'll use C as well. Get that on, get that down, get the level down so we don't hear it. And again, a macro onto the course. And what we want is for FMB to have more impact over oscillator A than oscillator C, so we get that downlifter and riser effect. And I'm going to go back to our old friend Genji for this one, just to demonstrate. And as you can hear, if we turn this one up, then this oscillator C gets much faster, but because we've still got oscillator B as the dominant LFO over oscillator A with the FM here, that means we've still got this as the main basis. Maybe we could turn up the signal a bit. As you can hear, you get some pretty cool kind of cell phone tones from this. Try and stick another bode on here maybe. Very nice. I'm getting a bit of multi-band as well. Maybe we could modulate the sync to increase and decrease the rate of C. We could stick on a filter. Let's have a look. What Serum 2 filters have we got? I've embarrassingly not messed around with these new filters very much, so let's have a look at a diffuser. Maybe something else. Let's stick LFO onto this scream here. Maybe we'll do it on cut off as well. Bring down the mix a bit. Let's stick another bode. Turn down the blur and feedback on this one. Get oscillator B on here. And we use C on this one. Let's change the wavetable of oscillator B. Maybe we could get the level coming from B and C as well. Let's do both of them. What other functions have we got in here? We could even do a rectify maybe. Maybe we could modulate the FMB amount from oscillator C. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you would like to like and subscribe, then feel free to do so. I'll have plenty more stuff like this coming out very shortly. I've got a link down below to 11 free presets using this method on my Gumroad. And check out Clanker, tell your mum, tell your dad, $8.99 for over 200 samples. What a steal, under 5p a sample for some pretty interesting stuff. Go check that out. Buy it now, blah blah blah. Thank you very much for watching, I'll see you again soon.